Good evening and welcome to my presentation. I am going to present to you guys Mandela's life through Erikson's 10 stages of development. And everyone knows who Nelson Mandela is. He is a global symbol of resilience, equality, and leadership. He has lived through all the 10 stages of life of development. So I am going to dive right in and start with all the stages and also how it influenced him. Okay, so we're going to start with his infancy and toddlerhood. Infancy and this is the stage of trust versus mistrust, shame, and doubt. This is that stage. Nelson Mandela was born in 1918 in Mzo, which is a South African country. It's a small village. He was born into a royal family, and his father died when he was really young, so he didn't get to have that influence from the father. But since he was born in a very tight community, he was taken over by the regents of that town, which is called Timbu. So the tribe Timbu took over and they held him under the wings and was able to raise him. So in this Thai community, Nelson Mandela learned about he learned about commitment to his life. He also learned about trusting his instincts, and this is the stage where he was able to learn about loyalty and also his integrity as a whole. So Mandela is known for that. Nelson Mandela, okay, let me go on to this one. So Mandela, in the next stage, which is the early childhood and middle childhood, this is the stage where he actually went to school. The first time Nelson Mandela went to school, his English teacher decided to name him Nelson. So his actual name was Madiba Mandela. But his English teacher, who couldn't say his name, ended up calling him Nelson. That's when he became Nelson Mandela. So as he was in school, he learned some things, and one of the things he learned was the racism and the social injustice among his people. So at this age, he was able to have that awareness that something did not make sense, or something, he wasn't treated right like the other kids that were in school with him. So in this stage, he also learned leadership, because he lived in a royal family. So he learned leadership. He was able to start reading and also just understanding certain things about the life he lived in. So the stage of adolescence and emerging adulthood. This is when Mandela was a teenager, and as he was getting into the teenage years, he was sent into a boarding school, a private boarding school, very prestigious. And as he was in a boarding school, he actually was able to find his voice. So he started joining protests. He started going against the policies that did not serve him and his skin tone, because as a black person during that time, it was the apartheid, so they were not able to give fair justice during certain things. So he fought the school policies, and then he also joined the apartheid, the movement, the anti-apartheid movement, and also he started understanding and also fell in love with politics. During this time, he also met his wife, Evelyn, and they had 4 kids. But he was so deep into the politics and the activism that he did not have good relationship with her and end up divorcing years later. Now we're going to the middle and late adulthood. This is the part of stagnation and also integrity. Nelson Mandela, throughout in the 1960s, was caught and imprisoned, life imprisonment for protesting and causing troubles in the school and also in the community. So Mandela, when he was in prison, you would think he would have a stagnation, but he didn't. He continued teaching and inspiring the youth. So he was able to give the youth something to look forward to while he was in prison. He read a lot of books, and he also sent letters to the anti-apartheid groups, which is the youth outside of prison, to keep fighting and keep believing that everyone has equal rights in South Africa. So he was able to still do that. Now, he was in prison and then he was released in the 1990s. So he was in prison for about 30 years. So he was released in the 1990s. And after he was released, 4 years later, he became the first Black president of South Africa. Many people thought that he was going to revenge, but no, with his integrity at this stage in his life, he actually tried to unify the country and also try to unify many other countries through his own example. So everyone knew him as the man who brought countries together and also was able to end the apartheid. So which is the apartheid regimes, which is the colonization of South Africans. So he created the ANC movement, which is where he started. So now he's the president, and he was able to unify the people and brought peace to South Africa. This was the middle and late adulthood of his life. Now, the end of his life, before the end of life, so in the 90s when he became president, as everybody thought he would revenge, and he did not revenge, he actually brought peace to South Africans, and he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize Award for bringing peace to not just South Africa, but an example for many countries to see. The end of life for Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, after coming out of prison, becoming president, and when he was voted out from presidency, he still did his humanitarian service and was traveling a lot and talking about unity and talking about how social equality, activism, and all the things that he had grew up with and has also been a part of his life. So Nelson Mandela died at the age of 95, and while he was dying, he died surrounded by his children and his loved ones and his family. Mandela's life definitely reflects Erikson's 10 stages of development. As I have shared on this page, he overcomes so many things. He overcome things that you would think that he would stop and not move on, or he would lose his integrity, but it did not. It did not change who he is. He actually made him greater, and everyone who knows Mandela knows that his legacy, as I talk to you, lives in our children and in our children's children. It will always be there. The resilience, the integrity, the commitment to people and humanity. Nelson Mandela had that. And like I said, Erikson's 10 stages of life was definitely affected and lived through with Nelson Mandela's life. I hope that we all have a little bit of his legacy within us. Thank you and have a good evening. Bye-bye.